Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating and honestly deeply misunderstood moment from the Mahabharata. It's a story all about the illusion of might. We're going to explore this singular, incredibly tense interaction that reveals a timeless, profound lesson about the relationship between absolute power and righteous duty. It's one of those stories that asks a massive question. Just because you have the power to do something, does it actually mean you should? So let's get right into it.
All right, let's set the scene here, and it's a pretty somber one. Picture the powerful Pandava princes. The source text literally likens them to so many Indras, meaning they possess the incredible power and majesty of gods, right? But look at their actual reality in this moment. They've completely lost their kingdom and are currently living out a difficult, painful exile in the woods. The source describes this beautiful but isolating forest, abounding with tall solid trees and washed by the waters of the Saraswati River. And it's here that these once mighty kings are desperately trying to maintain their piety and composure after a massive, crushing downfall.
Now, the contrast here is just wild. You have these fierce, exiled warrior kings spending their days serving peaceful, spiritual ascetics. We're introduced to the yatis, munis, and principal brahmanas, essentially the sages, ascetics, and priests of the forest. And what is King Yudhishthira, this bull of the Kuru race, actually doing? He's out there humbly offering them excellent fruits and roots to show his reverence. I mean, really think about that image for a second. A warrior king, totally stripped of his wealth, taking the time to serve those dedicated to spiritual pursuits just to maintain cosmic order. It's an absolutely beautiful display of humility in the face of suffering.
So, into this humbling, quiet environment walks a figure of absolute awe, the ancient and revered Rishi Markandeya. He's an old, all-knowing sage, but hey, do not let the word old fool you for a second. The text heavily emphasizes that he is possessed of intense, abundant energy and literally shines with the splendor of blazing fire. This is a guest of immense spiritual weight. His mere presence demands absolute respect, and not just from men, but from celestials too. Yudhishthira, despite his own unrivaled strength, immediately steps up and pays his deepest homage to this great Muni.
But right here is where the story takes a super sharp, unexpected turn. Instead of offering immediate pity or comforting words to these fallen royals, the illustrious Markandeya simply looks at Draupadi, Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna, surrounded by the ascetics, and he smiles. He just smiles. And this prompts a deeply hurt, super defensive question from the grieving King Yudhishthira, who asks, "All these ascetics are sorry for seeing me here. Why is it that thou alone smilest, as if in glee, in the presence of these?" You can practically feel the sting in Yudhishthira's words. He's suffering and he feels completely mocked.
We really have to ask ourselves, as Yudhishthira surely did in this incredibly tense moment, is this revered guest actually laughing at the misfortune of these fallen kings? Imagine the dead silence in that forest clearing. You've got mighty warriors who have lost absolutely everything, and a blazing sage seemingly finding joy in their calamity. Is it pride? Is it just a total lack of empathy? The tension is completely palpable, and Yudhishthira's grief makes his direct question so perfectly understandable. He's essentially asking, why on earth are you finding joy in my absolute ruin?
Fortunately, the tension completely breaks when Markandeya answers, and his clarification completely shifts the mood. He assures the king, he's truly sorry for their plight, and that pride born of joy does not possess his heart. He explains that his smile wasn't mockery at all. Rather, beholding their sudden calamity triggered a very specific, powerful memory in his all-knowing mind. He tells Yudhishthira that, looking at him, a king in painful exile, he suddenly recollected another famous royal exile from days of old. It was this bittersweet realization that history is, in a strange way, repeating itself.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact parallel Markandeya saw in his mind's eye. On one side, we have Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, powerful Kuru royals living in the woods after losing their kingdom. On the other side, Markandeya recalls Rama and Lakshman, mighty warriors dwelling in the woods at the command of their father. Markandeya even mentions he actually saw Rama in days of old ranging the Rishyamukha hills. He's drawing a direct, undeniable line between two sets of incredibly powerful, invincible warriors who willingly submitted to the hardships of the forest out of a strict adherence to duty and truth.
Let's zoom in on this comparison for a second, because the source text really emphasizes the sheer, terrifying power of Rama. It says he was equal to Indra, he was the lord of Yama himself, invincible in battle, and the literal slayer of Namuchi.
Yet this sinless warrior renounced all pleasures to accept the forest as his duty simply because his father commanded it. So the crucial point here is that Rama had the physical might to conquer anyone. He absolutely didn't have to go into that forest if he operated purely on brute strength. Yet he chose to restrain that immense, godlike power to honor his duty.
Which brings us to the absolute core philosophy of our explainer today. Therefore should no one act unrighteously, saying, I am mighty. This is the refrain that Markandeya uses to hammer home the truth to Yudhishthira. It's such a profound moral anchor. Physical power, political power, or sheer strength never, ever justifies breaking the rules of righteousness. Just because you have the might to do whatever you want doesn't mean you are suddenly free from the moral obligation to do what is right.
But Markandeya doesn't just stop at Rama. He drops this sweeping, grand list showing that obeying cosmic law is universal, no matter how powerful you are. He points to great figures like Kings Nabhaga and Bhagirath, who subjugated the whole world but did it by truth, obtaining the highest regions hereafter. He mentions the truthful king of Kasi and Karusha, who is actually called a mad dog for strictly renouncing his territories and riches. He even points up to the stars, the 7 righteous rishis, who blaze in the firmament specifically because they observe the ordinances prescribed by the Creator in the Vedas. Literally, from ancient kings to the blazing stars, everyone submits to a higher law.
Now, Markandeya's examples aren't just limited to humans and stars, and I absolutely love this specific imagery. He points to nature itself, specifically the mighty elephants. The text describes them as huge as mountain cliffs and armed with deadly tusks. They are, without a doubt, the undeniable titans of the forest. Yet Markandeya points out that even these massive, powerful creatures do not transgress the laws of the Creator. They act according to their species. It just perfectly visualizes the idea that even if you are the biggest, strongest, most well-armed creature in the forest, you still aren't exempt from the laws of nature and righteousness.
And so, Markandeya repeats his foundational refrain just to make sure the lesson really lands. Therefore, should none act unrighteously, saying, might is mine. He's reminding Yudhishthira, and honestly all of us, by extension, that all creatures must act according to the ordinance of the Creator rather than relying on their own brute force. The illusion of might is thinking it gives you a free pass to do whatever you want. True strength, as the sage points out, is having all that might and still actively choosing to operate within the bounds of virtue and truth.
Having imparted this profound wisdom, the sage builds up to this incredibly uplifting crescendo for the grieving king. He offers a prophecy of prosperity. Markandeya tells Yudhishthira that because he surpassed all creatures in truth, virtue, proper behavior, and modesty, his current suffering is absolutely not the end. Because he has remained firm in his promises and chose this painful exile over unrighteous might, his fame and energy are as bright as fire or the sun. Markandeya promises him that with the help of his own energy, he's eventually going to snatch back his blazing prosperity from the Kauravas. It's a massive, powerful reassurance that righteous duty ultimately yields victory. So, as we wrap this explainer up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder in your own life. In a world that so often equates power with permission, will you let might dictate your actions or duty? Markandeya's lesson to the exiled king really echoes across the centuries. When you find yourself in a position where you have the power to break the rules, to take a shortcut without any immediate consequence, what's going to guide your hand? Will you say, might is mine? Or will you, like the mountain-sized elephant or the invincible Rama, choose the path of righteous duty? Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the source material, and I'll see you next time.